Hey guys, welcome back to Tipharot. It's me Matt here, and I just woke up and I'm bringing you another dream story. So this is recorded on my iPad, but hopefully it looks a little bit better than the previous videos I did on my iPad because there's actually some light coming in the window this time. But anyway, so I had a really cool lucid dream last night, and in it I learned a new stabilisation technique. So I wanted to share both the dream and the technique with you, although I might make a separate video just on the technique at some point. So basically I was in a dream and I was exploring and I was just walking through some street, and I became lucid. I didn't actually use any technique to get there. I think this just happened from my daily meditation and so on. And so I started exploring some more. At first, I just wanted the dream to be stable so that I could actually continue enjoying it for as long as possible. So I just basically walked around the streets. And as I was doing this, I realized something. And that is that normally when I walk around through terrain in my dreams, I sort of have an expectation of what I'm about to see around the corner or whatever. That's because this is, a dream control technique. If I want to end up at a particular destination, then I imagine that it's just around the corner and that I'm going to go there. So this time I let go of that expectation. I just decided to completely, accept that the buildings were going to look however they looked. I tried to remove any idea in my brain about what it might be around the corner, even just guesses. I tried to remove those from my brain. And as I did that, I started walking around and I noticed that things were stabilizing a lot quicker than they usually do. And so at this point I decided to fly. And flying is one of those things that really is a test of how stable the dream is a lot of the time, because your dream when you fly has to render all of this terrain around you, whereas when you're standing in the middle of the street somewhere, it might just be a few houses around you. When you're up in the sky, you might see a whole city and mountains and everything. So sometimes that can make your dreams destabilize and make you wake up. So I decided to take off and start flying, first through the buildings and then up a little bit higher. And as I did this, I kept doing what I was doing before. In other words, having zero expectations about what was going to be around me. This is something that I normally don't do. I'm just so in the habit of expecting, to see something. Whether it's, because I'm trying to see, a particular location or a particular object, or if it's just because I recognise that street as looking like, say, a street from my old town or something like that. But this time I didn't do that. This time I just cleared my mind completely and just went with the flow. And I noticed that the dream was not just staying stable, but it was becoming more and more stable as I did this. And I could feel that my lack of expectation in itself was stabilizing the dream. So I decided to experiment more with this. I kept flying and I was flying faster, going around houses and all sorts. And during this time, I just let go of all expectations still. And as I did this, the dream kept stabilizing more and more. And so I was just flying around for ages and ages, and I was just stunned at just how long this dream was lasting, because I just kept flying and flying. And, I was going to new places, going past new buildings, going down new streets, going up in the air and over long parts of terrain and everything. And it just kept going and going and going. So at some point I realized that this definitely is actually a stabilization technique. Letting go of all expectations, just basically having a blank mind. So, I sat down on the ground and I started walking around and trying the same approach on the ground. Just looking at the buildings around me and clearing my mind completely so that I had no expectations about what the buildings would look like, about, what people I would see, about what cars I would see or anything. I just kept looking around and just watching and observing with a clear mind. And as I did this, everything kept stabilizing. And occasionally, after, God knows how long, but it was a very long time, I started to get moments where it felt like the dream was going to fade away. And I thought, well, it's been a very long dream. It's going to fade away at this point anyway. But I decided to try what I'd just been doing. So I got rid of my expectations about the dream staying stable. I just kind of accepted that, hey, okay, it's possibly going to fade away now. I've had a long, nice dream, so it might fade away. And I let go of all expectations for the dream to continue. And I did this, and the dream stabilized again. And so I kept walking around a bit longer, and the dream started to destabilize. I did the same thing. This time the dream faded out, but then it faded right back into a new scene, and I was completely somewhere else, just a second later. And I kept doing this again, for God knows how long. This was probably one of my longest lucid dreams ever. I completely lost track of how long I spent in that dream. It was just insanely long. But it was a really long and fun dream, and it made me realise something important about stabilisation that I think is one of the things that I got wrong for many, many years. Because one of the things I found with stabilisation over the years is, I've mentioned this before in previous videos, but it was one of the things that I always struggled with the most myself. Even now, in these days, I still have some times where, you know, I'll get into a dream and my stabilisation techniques just don't quite work for me. And I always wondered why it was that sometimes a particular technique would work so well for me, and then another night it just wouldn't work for me at all. And I do think it actually had something to do with expectations. I think that I was almost trying too hard to stabilise the dream, and I was sort of stressing about it too much. I've talked about this with lucid dreaming in general before, that I think if you stress too much about getting lucid, you're too dependent on that end result, then you might actually find yourself not getting lucid even though you're doing all the right things, just because you're so worried about that result that it almost gets in the way and stops you from doing it. Well, I think the same thing is true here for stabilisation. And I think by letting go, both of what you expect to see around you, how you expect the dream to play out, and also of letting go, if the dream starts to fade, just accepting whatever happens, can actually be a valid stabilisation technique. And not just a valid one, but a really, really good one. So yeah, that was a really awesome and fun dream. I thought I'd share that with you guys. I'll probably make a separate video just talking in detail about the technique and how I think it should be applied. But yeah, hopefully some of you guys try out that technique and find that it also works for you. If you'd like to learn more about lucid dreaming, I highly recommend checking out my lucid dreaming book, The Lucid Dream Book. There's some information on screen about what the book contains, and if you want to get your hands on it, you can go to gum.co/theluciddreambook. That's gum.co/theluciddreambook. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to keep up to date with my videos, then make sure you subscribe and enable all notifications. And if you want to keep watching, check out one of the videos linked on screen. Go watch that, and I'll see you there soon. Take care.